Provision Mentorship is one of several strategic focuses of Provision Solutions Inc. I'm Jim Ewing, and mentorship can make a difference. This is one of several interviews with those who've experienced mentorship. Learn from their experiences. Then take a moment and share your experiences on our blog, Provision Mentorship.
I would have to say that I've had very few genuine mentors. I can think of two in a career. They had a big influence. I still think often about many of the things I learned from them. But I think genuine mentors are fairly rare. For me, the most important thing is that for a mentoring relationship to really work well, the two people involved have to have a vested interest in each other. They really have to care about each other. There has to be almost a kind of a chemistry. So I'm not a big fan of forced mentoring programs. I'm much more in favor of making introductions and letting mentoring relationships evolve, and ideally inspiring leaders with the idea that mentoring is worthwhile, it's satisfying, and it's a great way to spend a leadership career.
What type of help can a mentor provide?
You know, I think there are two things that mentors can do that are really important. The first is just to inspire young people or those they are mentoring with possibilities. I think oftentimes it's the leaders or the mentors in our lives that see things in us before we see them. And when that happens, we oftentimes want to reach for those possibilities. And the second part is more practical, and that's just simply equipping that person by sharing the experience that oftentimes is hard-won with that person you're mentoring.
Talk with us about the development of the mentorship relationship.
You know, I think one of the three things that would be really important would be helping that individual develop a stronger sense of purpose, knowing why you're where you are, doing what you're doing. And then I think practical lessons, the things that person has learned over the years, that maybe are not so obvious but that are oftentimes important. I think about one mentor who years ago said to me, you know, Dan, the mark of great thinking is simplicity, not complexity. And I never forgot that, the ability to take complex ideas and distill them down into something simple. That's just one of the many lessons I learned from one mentor in particular that I've never forgotten. Yes, the mentoring relationships that I've been involved in, and once again, I've been fortunate to have a great many proteges because I love mentoring. I have a passion for mentoring. I've only had a couple of mentors. In probably both situations where I was the mentor and those where I was the protege, the beginnings really happened almost naturally. They weren't forced. It was really two people taking an interest in each other and encouraging one another. You know, when you're a mentor and you spend time with a protege and that protege is enthusiastic, enjoys the time, makes it clear that he or she enjoys the time, well then the mentor is more encouraged to invest more time in it. So I guess if you're the protege, encouraging the mentor is a good first step. In establishing, you know, again, that's been a more natural process for me, but probably thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense to talk about goals, to talk about what the protege's ambitions are, and to get an understanding around where and how the mentor can help. Certainly it makes sense to set aside some specific time whenever you can, not to leave that to chance, to schedule your time together. I remember one leader that I worked with, I wouldn't call him a mentor, but I made an effort insofar as when he came to the newspaper I was working at, I approached him and asked him if I could have a half an hour once a week scheduled so that we could just talk about the way things were going. Strengthening the relationship, I suppose, again, you just learn more about each other as you go through the process, and that strengthens the relationship. So having an openness to talk about what's working and what's not working is probably important. Getting to know one another is important, and you can't get to know someone if you're not spending time with them, so you have to invest time in mentoring. I don't think I've ever been involved in any formal transitioning. as a protege, my mentoring relationships ended normally because there was a geographic change. The man that I was working for ended up taking another position within the company and sometimes moving thousands of miles away. With the proteges that I've worked with, those relationships really haven't ended. There are people who worked on my team, one in particular at the St. Catharines Standard in 1996. I was a mentor, she was a protege. We still talk. She's moved on to 2 or 3 other jobs and had a very successful career in the newspaper business, still has a successful career in the newspaper business. I left it 10 years ago, but that relationship hasn't ended. And many of the mentoring relationships that I've had for 10, 12, 15 years with people who have crossed my path where it's become a mentoring relationship and it hasn't ended. And I think the best mentoring relationships probably don't. They may transition into something different. It may not be a once-a-week meeting. It may be 2, 3 times a year. You pick up the phone and just see how the protege is doing. But that's probably the way they've worked with me.
Is it possible for a mentorship relationship to be mutually beneficial?
I think it can help the mentor insofar as it has been said that if you really want to know something well, teach it. So mentoring forces you to think about why you believe what you believe, how you would explain it to someone else. It forces you to think more about the cause and effect relationships between how what we do affects the outcomes that we're involved in. So I think it helps mentors in helping them to distill what's important to them and how they would explain it. It certainly helps the protege insofar as the right mentor can inspire growth at a much faster rate than would be possible without that mentor.
Have you got some tips for both the protege and the mentor?
I guess the most practical suggestion would be simply to talk about it, to spend time talking about the relationship itself as opposed to the work that you're pouring into it. So what in the relationship is working, what in the relationship's not working, and how can the two parties continually improve upon it. I'm not so sure I would describe it as a sore spot, but when the protege is not understanding because the mentor is not presenting it in the right way or the right fashion, or learning styles become an issue, then I think it would be easy for some proteges just to muddle along and not say something, where the sensible thing would be to talk about when you're understanding and when you're not understanding, and what are the best ways for you to learn as a protege.
What final thoughts would you share with those considering entering into a mentorship relationship?
Well, I just think mentoring, although it is not common, genuine mentoring, it's one of the things that really takes leaders into a whole new realm of leadership. It really, because I think with a mentor, aside from building practical skills, you're also building a relationship, and all great leadership is relational. People who work for mentors don't want to disappoint mentors. And the process of helping someone else grow for the right leaders is a very, very satisfying process. It's really what leadership is all about. So I would encourage them just by helping them understand what a satisfying process it is, how worthwhile it is, and how enjoyable it is.
Now it's your turn to share your experience with mentorship. Visit our blog, Provision Mentorship. Make the investment in mentorship today for your success tomorrow.